Okay, G6C analog and digital integrated circuits, microprocessors, memory, input-output devices, microwave integrated circuits, and display devices. Which of the following is an analog integrated circuit? Now, analog has a variety of different voltages. The digital circuits are either 0 or 1 voltage state. The analogs have a range of voltage, and a linear voltage regulator, a linear device, is an analog device. All of these others are digital integrated circuits. The linear voltage regulator is an analog integrated circuit. What is meant by the term MMIC? An MMIC is a monolithic microwave integrated circuit. Monolithic microwave integrated circuit. Which of the following is an advantage of CMOS integrated circuits compared to TTL integrated circuits? Some more alphabet soup here that I will try to stir up a little bit. CMOS is complementary metallic oxide semiconductor type of chemistry, of technology, and the TTL is the older transistor logic. CMOS has replaced TTL because of its lower power consumption. CMOS has much lower power consumption than the older TTL integrated circuits. What is meant by the term ROM? And all the folks that are computer savvy there will know that it means read-only memory. And it's memory that can be read from, but cannot be written to. What is meant when memory is characterized as non-volatile? Okay, what that means is that the stored information is maintained even if power is removed. A lot of the older memory devices back in the earlier days of computer technology would lose the information stored in them if the power was turned off. And more modern memory is non-volatile, which means that the information does not disappear even if the power is removed from the device. Which of the following describes an integrated circuit operational amplifier? An operational amplifier, once again, is an analog circuit. Analog circuit, operational amplifier. What's one disadvantage of an incandescent indicator compared to an LED, which is a light-emitting diode? And this is written exactly backwards from the way I would have written the question. The disadvantage of an incandescent is its high power consumption. And I'm sure I would have written it the other way around and asked for the advantage of the LED. But anyway, the disadvantage of the incandescent is high power consumption. And if you look at this question, none of these things would be disadvantages, would they? In any situation, low power consumption is not a disadvantage. High speed is not a disadvantage. Long life is not a disadvantage. So even if you had no idea what incandescent or LED meant, you should be able to puzzle this one out because the only disadvantage there is the high power consumption. Here's a picture of an incandescent bulb, and you're familiar with these. They're like the conventional flashlight bulbs, or maybe a lot of the bulbs in your car. And here's the light-emitting diode. How is an LED biased when emitting light? Okay, an LED, a light-emitting diode, emits light when it is conducting. And to be conducting, it must be forward biased. And as it conducts, it emits the light. Which of the following is a characteristic of a liquid crystal display? Liquid crystal displays, and you have them all over the place, LCDs, you may even have a television that's LCD. It requires some kind of a light source besides just the crystal itself. Requires either ambient light falling on it or backlighting coming through from behind the liquid crystal in order for it to be visible. So it requires either ambient light falling on it or backlighting coming through the liquid crystal display for you to see it. What two devices in an amateur radio station might be connected using a USB interface? USB interface is the common computer type interface, and the correct answer is a computer and a transceiver. And here's what the USB looks like. You're very familiar with it. It's the same connector that's on your thumb drive, and so on. Here's another variant of it that could be used for a small device, like perhaps a Nook or a Kindle or perhaps I'm not familiar with MP3 players, but they may have small flat ones like this too. But anyway, the USB device is a computer connector, and it's used between a computer and transceiver. What is a microprocessor? A microprocessor is a computer that's been put on a single integrated circuit chip. And here is an example of a microprocessor. You can see it has a whole bunch of connections to it. And inside this chip are the operating things, the input and output circuits. Memory is included in here, and so on. But a microprocessor is a computer on a single integrated circuit. Which of the following connectors would be a good choice for a serial data port? There's an error in the question and presumably in the test where the answer is given DB9 or DE9, and it should actually be DB9. And it happens to be the correct answer. The DB9, if you're a computer person you are familiar with, it is the connector that looks like this. All of these others are antenna connectors. So a serial data port is going to be between devices other than antennas, and some of the tests may have been corrected. Some may say DB9, but this DE9 or DB9 answer is the correct one. Which of these connector types is commonly used for RF service at frequencies up to 150 megahertz? RF, you'll remember, is radio frequency, and what we're looking for here is an antenna connector, and the antenna connector in this group is the PL259. That's your common antenna connector that you use between your transceiver and your antenna. And this is the male end of it, the PL259. The mating socket for that is called a SO239. Looks like this, and it'll be on the back of the radio where you hook up the antenna. These are often referred to as UHF connectors, even though they are not rated for UHF. And they're sometimes also referred to as type M connectors. M as in Mike connectors. Which of these connector types is commonly used for audio signals in amateur radio stations? The RCA phono connector is sometimes used for audio signals. I wouldn't say commonly, but that's the way the question is written. The key here is audio signals. And if you'll remember, these are all over the back of your stereo equipment, which is audio equipment. So that's the key to that. And once again, all of these other connectors are antenna-type connectors. What's the main reason to use keyed connectors instead of non-keyed types? Okay. When we're talking about a keyed connector, we're talking about a connector that is designed so that it can only be fit together one way. And there are several ways to do this. In this one, they actually have keys that make it impossible to put the connector together wrong. In this case, the keying is done by the shape of the body of the connector. There's a point on this end and a flat on this end. Again, here on the DB9, the shape of the shell and the placement of the pins also provides keying so that it's so they can't be incorrectly put together. Which of the following describes a type N connector? It's a moisture resistance RF connector that's useful to 10 gigahertz. Here you can see some pictures of it. It's a fairly complicated connector. Here's the center pin of the coaxial cable right here. Here's the shield of the coaxial cable is attached to this sleeve right here. And this is designed so that it does not change the impedance of the feed line as it goes through this connector. It's designed to be a constant impedance connector so that you don't get any kind of standing waves generated at this point in your feed line. And these are commonly used above 500 megahertz, sometimes even lower, and they're good up to about 10 gigahertz. Now, why does the frequency make a difference? Well, the frequency makes a difference because the higher you go, the shorter, the smaller your waves are. You have a shorter wavelength. And because of that, things like small physical differences can make a difference in how the wave is affected by going through a conductor or going through a connector. What's the general description of a DIN-type connector? A DIN-type connector is a family of multiple circuit connectors suitable for audio and control signals. You'll find these on some digital equipment. You'll find them some places on computers. You'll sometimes find them on audio equipment. And I think they come out of Europe. I'm not sure, but I think they originally came out of Europe. And they're typically, they aren't used for radio frequency stuff at all. They're used for data and for audio and things like that. What is a type SMA connector? A type SMA connector is an antenna connector. It's suitable. It's a small threaded connector suitable for signals up to several gigahertz. If you have one of the Chinese handhelds, you have a reversed SMA on it. This is the normal female SMA here. Here's the normal male SMA connector here. And it's again, it's a constant impedance a connector that is good up to several gigahertz. On the Chinese radios, they've turned it the other way so that you have the male here and the females on the antenna. But it works the same way. You just need a different adapter for it to hook it up to an antenna cable.